Alright, so the day I'm recording this is October 1st, right? Which is the day Hallowaste 2 released. Now, I've went ahead and recorded the developer playthrough of Hallowaste 2, and I went back to watch the developer playthrough of Hallowaste 1 just to see if my opinions from back then changed or not. And it doesn't exist. There's a developer playthrough of Hallowaste 1, it just doesn't have any commentary. So I decided to make a new one. Also, I wasn't going to release the Hallowaste 2 commentary playthrough today either. That was planned to be released later, after everyone who already played the game, played the game. There probably won't be too many people who play it, like 4 at most, but whatever. Now, Hallowaste 1 is different from Hallowaste 2 in the sense that there's technically a story. There's the intro screen. Now, there's technically only 3 music tracks in Hallowaste 1, and one of them is used for 8 of the game's 10 levels, so there's that. Now, mechanically, Froth moves a bit faster in this game than Gizzard does in Hallowaste 2. He has 2 more health than Gizzard does in Hallowaste 2. And, shot speed-wise, Gizzard is, I'm pretty sure, slightly faster. They're pretty much the same fire rate. But, Froth's projectiles move faster. You really need the projectiles to move faster in this game, though, considering the big thing. Enemy health. Now, enemies in Hallowaste 2 take growth specifically, take 3 shots to kill. In this game, they take 5. That may not seem like a huge difference, and it's really not. But every single enemy in this game is like that, and as the enemies get tankier and tankier, that applies tenfold. You'll see later. Now, mildly fun fact, this room in particular is the first room of Hallowaste 2 Stage 1, right? Except I replaced the raiders with the eyeball goobuses. Now, here we have our introduction to the melee raider. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They take 7 shots. I always forget how much health they have. In Hallowaste 2, their equivalent, the grip, have 4 health, so yeah. They also, have a unique sprite. The range raiders, I forgot to count how many health the range raiders have. But the range raiders and the melee raiders share pretty much the same sprite with a swapped weapon, and they also share the same death animation, which, whatever. This game was made in 10 days, I'm not gonna be too mad at it. Now, the level design in Hallowaste 1 is far more purposeful than the level design in Hallowaste 2. In Hallowaste 2, a lot of the stages are... by the way, the growth death sound is the only sound effect in the entire game. In Hallowaste 2, a lot of the levels are just like, I haven't used this enemy in a while. Let's put it here, for the most part. That's how a lot of the portions of Hallowaste 2 are designed. And while that's not the best way to design levels, it works, kind of, as an enemy variety. There's like 8 regular enemies in Hallowaste 2, yeah. In this game, there's 7, 2 of which being the raiders, which have pretty much the same sprite, but mechanically are different. And while this game still uses that same philosophy of, I haven't used that enemy in a while, let's use it here, the actual use of the enemies is far more purposeful. That being said, the level design in this game is obnoxious on purpose a lot of the time. Talking about the ranged raiders here, they're often put very close together, which means that they shoot in the same direction, and therefore there's not much difficulty when it comes to avoiding their projectiles. So yeah, the first ranged enemy in Hallowaste 2, those things are stationary, meaning that by default, the angle at which they take their shots from is different from another one. Unless you're standing in the perfect spot in between the 2 of them, they're going to be shooting at different angles. And by different angles, I mean the direction you have to avoid them from. Obviously, every enemy that's on a different coordinate is going to be shooting at a different angle slightly, but whatever. You know exactly what I mean when I say that. I don't need to explain it. Anyway, Natto. There's Natto's sprite. He was the first real boss of Hallowaste 1. But whatever. Now, Now, this stage here introduces the foils. I often forget that these things even exist, because you can just, like, yeah, technically they're more purposeful than the eyeball guys from Hallowaste 2, for the simple fact that these guys actually have a gimmick. They get faster the more you shoot them. But because of how slow these dudes are in this game, and how fast Froth is compared to Gizzard and Hallowaste 2, they honestly have less of a reason to exist. The deal with the foils is they're the only enemy type in the game like this. Their sprite is ripped directly from the original Waste. Death Animation 2. So yeah. Every other enemy in this game was redrawn, right? They're the only enemy, besides the cameo characters, which aren't fightable. They're the only enemy whose sprite is ripped directly from the first game. The reason why I did that is because, honestly, they were one of the best looking enemies from the Waste game, because from the first Waste game, because I actually colored them properly and didn't leave these giant cutout pieces in their outline. But whatever. I didn't feel like redrawing them or reanimating them, so yeah, they're the only enemy that applies to. Every other enemy is redrawn and reanimated. Every other enemy from the first game. This game has a couple enemies that weren't in that game. Mildly fun fact, I'll talk about these when I get to them. Hallowaste 1 only has 2 enemies created for it. Every other enemy in this game was taken from something else. Now this right here, the flesh wall, is kind of the thing that defines if you prefer Hallowaste 1 to Hallowaste 2. Now, I've gone on record saying that I really don't like the flesh wall from a mechanical standpoint. From a design standpoint, love the guy, he's a little goobus. But from a mechanical standpoint, this thing is obnoxious beyond belief. It takes 10 shots to kill, and in Waste'em, every enemy in Waste'em usually takes less shots to kill in that game than this one. They still take 8 shots, which, yeah, is less, but it's still a crap load. These enemies were not created for this game, they were in something else. Their original name was the Flesh Door, but they were for a game. They weren't for a Waste game, they were created for a thing called Radoy Squad, don't question it. Now, you can't walk through the flesh wall, but enemies can. That's the thing that really makes these things annoying. You can't damage boost through them. There's a sort of flesh wall equivalent in Hallowaste 2, but you can damage boost through those. You can't damage boost through rad shooters or flesh walls in Waste'em either, but since the knife exists in that game, they're far easier to deal with, and especially the flesh walls, considering you just press the knife button 2 to 3 times. 2 times, then shoot them twice, they're dead. And the flesh wall, like I said about the level design in this game being far more deliberate but obnoxious, the flesh walls here are purposely made to force you to have a shootout with all of these raiders. Not the level design itself, there's just a roadblock that is designed on purpose to take time to, you know, kill. So yeah. Essentially, this makes speedrunning the game far less enjoyable. And then we get here, this part's really obnoxious. This. Yeah, you have to kill 2 flesh walls and at least 1 of the raiders. Unless you, like, lure all of them out and then go back in, but, like, don't do that. So yeah, that's cool. Like I said, the level design in Hallowaste 1, while being more purposeful than Hallowaste 2, is obnoxious. Exceedingly obnoxious. I don't think it's the worst in the series. I don't even think it's the second worst in the series from a level design standpoint. But, like, it is annoying. Here we have the next enemy type, the Curse. Contrary to, what... I don't know what I was going to say. Contrary to what you might believe, the Curse was not created for Hallowaste 1. Not only is the design itself an OC from CK, but the name is derived from the pumpkin character of Curse from the OG Waste. So nothing about the Curse, not even its gameplay mechanic, was was created for this game. We've yet to encounter an enemy actually created for Hallowaste 1. So, yeah. Also, in Hallowaste 1, the fog effects, they're all opaque. In Hallowaste 2, they're semi-translucent, meaning that you can actually see what's in a fog. That's on purpose in Hallowaste 2. A lot of the design philosophy in Hallowaste 2 comes from Waste'em. It's essentially a combination of the Waste'em ideology and the Hallowaste 1 ideology. So I thought it was important for you to be able to see what was in a fog, so, you know, they didn't immediately shoot at you. Not only that, but enemies in Hallowaste 1, a lot of them activate immediately upon, not a lot of them, really, just the raiders, if I remember correctly. They shoot immediately upon spawning in, like right there. But yeah. Obviously, this is another example of the whole deliberate level design thing. You have to duke the curses while duking the raider. Now, curses have 15 health, by the way, which is more than a flesh wall. Anyway, that's the Matrim. The Matrim is another cameo character, plan boss for Hallowaste, for the OG Waste. If I'm stumbling over my words, it's because I just finished a 35-minute recording session for Hallowaste 2, and I'm just kind of trying to get this over with. Here we have the first enemy actually created for Hallowaste 1, the Clanker. These things, design-wise, are probably my favorites in the game, and I like their gimmick a decent amount. Their biggest issue is that they take 25 shots to kill, which is way too much. And the game really wants you to kill these things. So yeah. Damage boosting is like an actual strategy you can use in Hallowaste 2. I personally don't use it too often. I definitely used it in the recording just to speed things up. But I honestly, whenever I play any video game, don't really like damage boosting. But I also don't like removing the option of damage boosting. I think if a player is willing to lose health to, you know, speed up the gameplay, they should be allowed to do that. And Hallowaste 1 really likes forcing the player to not damage boost, because flesh walls are a constant in this game. And you can't walk through them. So yeah. The game really wants you to kill these two clankers in particular, which will take 50 shots, by the way, because the next room, the next area of the stage has 2 flesh walls in it, and even more clankers. So you are intended to kill these things. But I'm not going to. I'm just gonna friggin' gamble and see if I can kill the enemies in this room before these guys get down here. You can kind of bundle enemies together, with the exception of the curses, since they obviously go through walls. You can use that wall in the center to bundle enemies together and get to these flesh walls up here. A lot of the strategy, I'm essentially showing you how to cheese this game in a way that I did not intend when I actually developed it, but I just can't deal with this right now. Every enemy in this game takes ages to kill relative to Hallowaste 2. For whatever reason, and I've noticed this, the faster the player character moves in a Waste game, the more health enemies have. Now we're on to the torch level, and I go back and forth on if I think this is the best or if this is the best level of the game or not. Now Torch is the other new character created for Hallowaste 2. So the reason I think that is because this game, not this game, most Waste games are meant to be taken methodically, killing enemies, strategizing, positioning, etc. But this stage completely flips that on its head by making you actually try and beat it as fast as possible. Again, unless you cheese Torch by using that block up there to duke him. By the way, the track of this stage was made by CK, but whatever. Need to mention that because duh. Anyway, this level adds gameplay variety without changing the core mechanics. It's not like forcing the player to play an entire fishing campaign of fishing minigames like Sonic Adventure does. By the way, that meme about fishing minigames being the best part of a video game, that's ironic, by the way, and a lot of people don't know that it's ironic. It's referencing stuff like Big the Cat's campaign in Sonic Adventure, which, to fight the true final boss of Sonic Adventure, you have to play an entire campaign's worth of fishing minigames. So that's awesome. Now, this level was also taken and put into Hallowaste 2. Obviously with the enemies changed, but the vague level layout here is Stage 4 of Hallowaste 2. This level was also taken from the OG Waste. It's purposely in both of those games to reference the OG Waste. Now to... so the opaque fog, right? What it essentially means is that you have an option of going 2 different ways here. The opaque fog means that you can't tell the difference between these 2 options, meaning blind lead with faith. In Hallowaste 2, even if the fog wasn't opaque, there wouldn't really be an option objectively worse than the other. But this one, if you go up here and go into there, directly leads back down into this option anyway. So going here is pretty ideal. Again, the raiders immediately fire upon the fog disappearing all the way, so that's pretty cool. But yeah, going down is the optimum route here. Because it immediately, by the way, these guys sometimes get stuck in the wall, and sometimes they don't. And yeah, even if you go down here, you could say, well, you'll be at the exit. There's a flesh wall here that you can't walk through. So yeah, I think I did that on purpose to be a little bastard man. But whatever. Hallowaste 1, like I said, is designed to be annoying on purpose a lot of the time. Again, I don't think it's the most annoying Waste game. Greeds in the Waste and Inferno are probably more annoying, but there's just things in Hallowaste that are purposefully annoying. Anything in Hallowaste 2 that's annoying for the most part was not intentional. Stage 8 is very annoying in Hallowaste 2 because of the stacks. But, the stacks being annoying was intentional, but not how annoying they are in Stage 8. Anyway, you get the 4 curses here. If you go through this path and then have to fight the raiders down there anyway, because, you know, the flesh wall. Yeah. Anyway, the paths in Hallowaste 2, number 1, they're actually different. Number 2, this one here doesn't exit out into this one. It exits out through the wall here, meaning you entirely skip the bottom path. And number 3, one route isn't just harder than the other. In Hallowaste 2, you have a route that takes longer because it's filled with tankier enemies, and a route that's much faster but has more difficult ranged enemies. That's how Stage 4 works in Hallowaste 2. Also, there's no flesh wall equivalent in that stage, so that's a factor. If we go up here, bunch of growths, yeah. In the OG Waste, this level design was, this level was filled with like 20 growths in this part of the stage, which is why the stack, the master of all growths, this is the spot he's introduced in Hallowaste 2. This room that used to contain like 20 growths. Anyway, final boss time. Think mechanically is a decent enough fight, but if you don't know what you're doing, this could be the most difficult fight in the series. He's pretty simple. He really just has the shotgun attack, the dash move, and the summon enemies move. That's it. 3 moves. But he does have like a phase 2, technically. Upon hitting around half health, he'll summon Torch to walk around. Torch, by the way, is another enemy you can't walk through, and since he's essentially a moving wall, he made at the tail end of development, considering he's in like the second to last non-boss level. Torch is bug. Torch is very, very bug. But yeah, think we'll start summoning he always does this. We'll summon a ranged raider and a melee raider at the same time. This very quickly, if you can't like keep track of that, and kill them at a fast rate, will overwhelm the player, making this one of the hardest bosses in the series if you don't know what you're doing, if not the hardest. It's at the very least harder than any boss in Hallowaste 2. But since you can get the ranged raiders to bunch up, you can cheese it a bit. Normally ranged raiders have the same fire rate, but since these guys were created at different times, they actually have a staggered fire rate, which makes this fight significantly harder. But yeah, there's the ending screen, if you're curious. And the way Hallowaste 1 works is that when you beat a stage, you can't go back to that stage until you beat the game. Once you beat the game, you can hit the R button to reset all of your progress and go back to stage 1. But yeah, that's Hallowaste 1. I think Hallowaste 2 is a significantly better game. But whatever.